welcome to another Monday at the Mound. We are so excited to have you here at Rock Eagle with us for our winter video series. Today we are outside in one of my favorite sampling sites here at Rock Eagle. We are at our location that we like to call Narnia, and this is where we bring classes to do some sampling and to also look for amphibians and tadpoles, which is what we're going to be talking about today. And if my camera person, Miss Anna, wants to pan around, you can see that this habitat is characterized by lots of mixed hardwood forests, tons of tulip poplars. There's a stream running through it, which is perfect for our amphibian friends. And then we also have all of these old, down, fallen trees that make amazing habitat for lots of animals, fungi, and insects. So this is a great location to look for a wide diversity of animals. And the animals that we're going to focus on today are our amphibian friends. So to get us started, we are going to remind ourselves about what makes an amphibian and introduce you guys to some local Georgia amphibian friends. So amphibians are vertebrates, and they are typically categorized as frogs, toads, and salamanders. Those are kind of our big, common, familiar groups. They're vertebrates, and they have a special life stage in which they must be born in water, and then they have a juvenile stage that is aquatic and an adult stage that's typically terrestrial or living on land. So a couple of examples that we can find in Georgia are going to be a green tree frog. So this is an adult green tree frog, and you can figure out where they got that name from. They're that bright, beautiful green color. And these guys are typically going to be found up in the trees because they're going to camouflage really well with leaves. And you can see those big toe pads. They're going to be great little suction cups for climbing. So a very common amphibian in Georgia. You've probably seen them around your house. They especially like to get up around outdoor lights where all the insects are. So that's our frog. Our next example is going to be a toad. And this is an American toad. And right off the bat, he looks a little bit different than our frog friend. Toads generally have bumpy, almost warty-like skin. And he doesn't have those suction cups for feet like the frog does. Oh, he's fine. He's a little chilly because it's a little cold today. But an American toad, you'll see these guys hopping around, and you can tell they would camouflage really, really well amongst the leaf litter. And then our next example of an amphibian is going to be a salamander. So I have one of our favorite amphibians to show, which is this guy right here. This is a tiger salamander. And they are the largest species of terrestrial or land-dwelling salamanders in the U.S. And you can see just how big he is. He's bigger than an anole, a lizard, quite large for an amphibian. But some of the common characteristics that you might have noticed amongst all our examples of amphibians is that they don't have any scales. So like here on the tiger salamander, he's got smooth skin. They don't have claws on their feet. They do have a backbone. They're vertebrates. And then they also, one thing we can't see right now, is that they would need to lay their eggs in water. And we're talking about amphibians in February because this is when some of the species of amphibians that live in Georgia are actually starting to lay their eggs. We wouldn't necessarily think of amphibians reproducing in the wintertime because amphibians are cold-blooded or ectothermic. So we think it's too chilly for them to be wandering around, laying their eggs and reproducing. But in fact, this is a great time for them to reproduce because our winters are usually very, very wet. And like I said, amphibians need to lay their eggs in water. So they're going to be traveling, looking for a wet spot that could be a stream like what's behind me, or it could be an ephemeral wetland that we might find even out here in a forest like this. And an ephemeral wetland is a temporary wetland. So when it rains a ton, the low spots in the land will collect water, and because they're temporary, they're not going to host fish, so there are no predators to eat the amphibian eggs. And a lot of salamanders, frogs, and toads prefer to lay their eggs in those little wetlands where they are free from predators, but it's a temporary wet spot for those eggs to develop. And then they'll also look for these streams. So if you go out on a wet, rainy night in the wintertime, definitely listen, because you will hear tons of frogs and toads calling. If you go on a short walk, you may even find some salamanders crossing the road or crossing a trail, and they're going to lay their eggs in general, or to find other salamanders, frogs, and toads. So let's get an idea of what these amphibians look like as juveniles. So I'm going to bring you over here because we actually have some juvenile amphibians that we were able to find right here in this wetland. So I'm going to have Miss Anna come on over here. So amphibians, like I said, they go through a process called metamorphosis, and that means that they're going to go through a big change. Their juvenile or baby form looks completely different than their adult form. And we can think of other animals that do this, like butterflies, moths, bees, a lot of beetles, where their baby form, like a caterpillar or worm, looks totally different than the adult who has wings and legs and can fly. For amphibians, you may already be familiar with this, but a baby frog or toad is actually going to look like this tadpole here. So you can see the tadpole actually looks more like a fish than it does a frog or a toad. They've got this long fin-like tail. They're going to have a huge mouth underneath their head, and they are going to be purely aquatic at this early life stage once they hatch from the egg. As they grow, this tail will start to shrinken, and their legs are actually going to start to grow, kind of pop out of the sides of their bodies. So if you see a frog or toad in the middle of metamorphosis, they may look something like some of these guys right here, where they have short little stubby legs and maybe a short little tail, and then as they continue to eat and grow, those legs will develop more and they'll have much longer formed legs and toes. So they do look a lot like fish, but like I said, they go through metamorphosis. And I have a fish as an example to compare. So this is a common species of fish in Georgia. It's a mosquito fish, and they typically have a rather large head. So kind of similar at first glance to a tadpole. They're both vertebrates, but the fish is going to have more fins and it's got scales, whereas the tadpole does not have any scales. And you have probably found or seen tadpoles before, but then you might ask yourself, well, what does a baby salamander look like? Do they look like tadpoles as well? Not really. So a baby salamander is actually going to kind of have a salamander shaped body. It's already got legs, and then you might notice right here on the side of its body, those frilly things coming out of its neck, those are gills. So a salamander, once it hatches from the egg, it's going to look a little bit more like the adult form than our tadpole does, but it's going to have aquatic adaptations like these gills, which will eventually be reabsorbed by the body once the salamander is ready to be terrestrial. So really cool. And then I do have another special guest that I wanted to show you guys to show more diversity and variety in the species of salamanders and amphibians that we have in Georgia. So we actually found this teeny tiny salamander right here at Rock Eagle, and this was a terrestrial salamander, so he has already gone through metamorphosis and he is almost an adult. He's not very big right now, but he doesn't have those frilly gills. So just to show you, you can have teeny tiny salamanders that are smaller than your finger up to salamanders as big as this guy, the tiger salamander. So we do have here in Georgia, we're very lucky, we have an amazing diversity of amphibians with all of our different habitats and ecosystems from the mountains to the sea. And they are going to be very active this time of year. So you might be wondering, okay, this is really cool. We got to find some amazing amphibians here at Rock Eagle, but how can I find some amphibians at my house? So I've got a couple of tricks and tips to help you find amphibians in and around your house or where you live in Georgia. So one thing that you can do, maybe you're lucky enough that you live with a stream or creek in your backyard. If you do, or even if you don't, you can maybe find one at a local park, public park, or public land like a wildlife management area or trails at a state park, where you can go and access the stream and just use a net like this, which is just a simple bait net, and this is what we use to catch our fish, our salamanders, and our tadpoles. So we skimmed this through the water, we scooped up lots of leaf litter, and all of the juvenile amphibians, or if you're lucky, maybe even eggs, are going to be in that leaf litter, hiding and camouflaging, and so you'll find them then in your net. So you can go out and look in a stream or creek. Another thing you can do that's really simple at your house and really inexpensive is to actually make a pipe hidey hole or hide for them. So this is going to help you locate frogs in particular, because the frogs, tree frogs, are going to be able to climb these trees. And all this is a piece of PVC pipe. It's about 1.5 to 2 inches wide. It has a hole drilled about 1 inch from the top, and then it also has a cap at the bottom so that rainwater can get in it. It could potentially escape from this hole, but this cap is going to hold a piece of sponge, just an unused kitchen sponge, and that way when it does rain, this sponge will soak up some of that rain and hold in lots of moisture for any frogs that want to claim the inside of this pipe as a little hidey spot. So if you're lucky, you can pull down the pipe and you might be able to find a frog or toad actually seeking refuge inside the pipe. And this is great because it's inexpensive, but also it doesn't require any maintenance. Once you paint the pipe and get it set up on a tree, on a nail where you can reach it, any little critter, maybe even a lizard or a frog, is going to be able to get in here, seek refuge, but then also get out on its own. So you don't have to come check these and make sure that the animals using them are safe. They should be able to get in and out on their own. So it's a great way to check these every once in a while, but you don't have to remember to check them all the time or every day to look for animals. So a great passive way of looking for amphibians around your house. And you can put them in trees or even stick them in bushes as well. The last thing I want to show you, if you want to go look for reptiles, amphibians, even insects, is to do what we like to call flipping logs. And out here where we're in this mature forest, there are tons of downed trees that have fallen over in storms, or maybe trees that have been cut for forest maintenance. And all of these limbs offer and provide amazing habitat for little tiny creatures, microbes, all the way up to snakes and salamanders. So let's come over here and see if we can find something under this log here. So when I'm flipping a log, I do want to keep safety in mind, because I never know what I'm going to find under a log. There could be something under there that's harmful that I wouldn't want to come in contact with. So what I'm going to do is make sure that I flip the log towards me, and then if there is anything in here, I have an opportunity to look at it, but generally it's not going to come back towards the log, or it will scurry and go hide away. It looks like under this log we've got some earthworms, we've got a snail, we've got some fungi, and then there's probably tons of stuff that we just can't see with our naked eye. But these fallen logs are great places to look for salamanders as well. You might see a salamander laying under here, or a female curled up potentially around her eggs. As you can see, the bottom bark of this log has fallen off, so we might lift it up to look underneath it, but we want to make sure that we are a responsible scientist and that we put the logs back exactly the way that we found them. So I'm going to flip this log back over. If I disturbed any of the leaf litter, I'm going to put that back. And now hopefully it looks like I haven't even been here. I want to make sure that I leave no trace. I don't want to flip over a log like this limb and then just leave it and walk away, because now I've left all of the plants, animals exposed that were using the log as refuge. So I'm going to make sure to put it back. Going down to the stream or putting up frog pipes, flipping over logs, those are easy and fun ways to look for amphibians in your backyard or around where you live. But you do want to make sure that you're doing it safely. So always going out with an adult, always making sure that you're wearing appropriate footwear, that you're being safe. And if you're on land that's not your own, making sure that you're abiding by public land rules. But there are tons of amphibians and reptiles, insects, fungi, tons of living life forms all around us, and we just have to uncover them and find them. So we hope that you guys had fun at this Tadpole Tales, and we can't wait to see you guys next week for another Mondays at the Mound. Make sure you tune in tomorrow for Tuesdays on Tybee. Thank you guys for joining us.